Okay, this meeting is being recorded and we're going to post it to our YouTube channel so that people that couldn't make the meeting, or if we want to reference, we can go back and view it again. This is our 19th virtual meeting, and it is our end of the year DOT roundtable. So we hope everybody's doing well. I know everybody's really busy these days. The end of the school year, we're all trying to get buses cleaned up and our summer schedules together. Our last meeting was held on May 18th. Roger Harrod with Matthews Bus presented on multiplex systems. And I thought that was a really good presentation. A few of the points from that presentation was highway vehicles use the SAE-J 1939. There's terminal resistors, one at each end of the backbone, which stops the reflection of the power. In 2004, the FS65 chassis was retired, and it was replaced with the M2 chassis. When they did that, it eliminated 65% of the wiring, which I thought was an interesting point. They are using smart switches, so the switches are unique. Each switch has to be found by the main module 8 times per second. So it's a pretty in-depth system. You got one of the larger draws on a multiplex system is the headlights. So they break those up. They draw about 7 amps per light. So one goes on the bulkhead module, and the other one is controlled by the body control module. So that kind of splits the load up. All right, for you people that just joined, this meeting is being recorded and it's going to be posted to our YouTube channel. We're just going over the minutes of the last meeting. We get the backbone can be tested at the bulkhead module because it's easier to access that than it is the J1939 connector. And one of the other things that he mentioned is we don't want to use the old Nexus links. We want to, it's not designed for use with the newer systems. You want to use the one with the green plug. And then he spoke about a Blue Link Mini, which will transmit any of the information right to the manufacturer for easier diagnostics. So today's meeting, again, will be our annual DOT roundtable. We have Jeff Corey, the New York State DOT Bus Inspector Field Manager, and we have Chad Smith, who is the main office manager with DOT. They're here to answer any questions that we have concerning DOT inspections. A while ago, I sent out a couple of emails, and I also put together a survey asking for your questions. And we got a few questions in. A couple of them are really good. And I put them together and made sure that Jeff Corey had them in advance. So we should be good to go. I had a few this morning that just came in, and we'll go over those as well. So that being said, I am going to turn this meeting over to Mr. Jeff Corey.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I believe for the partnerships between DOT and the industry, these provide a lot of good information. On our side, DOT gets a lot of feedback, and we do take every question or comments, and we do review it and go from there. I just want to give a little introduction for our bus safety program. We have currently about 115 inspectors statewide. We are considerably short from where we should be, and we're in a position, just like everyone, that we cannot get hires going. It's not because we can't hire, it's finding the candidates that actually put in for applications and go through the process. For the regions, we have 11 supervisors again, spread over from Buffalo all the way down to New York City. So in the main office, you have myself, Jeff Corey. We mentioned Chad Smith. He's a main office manager. Also in the room, we have Steve Farina, which is a program specialist. A lot of the comments that you send through the passenger safety mailbox is really answered by Steve behind the scenes. So he's in the room also. And one other person we have is Jim Leonard. You may get him on the phone. He's also a program manager. He does a lot with the profiles, which go out yearly to the industry to really use as a report card. So, and for the ones that do not know, we do have a new bureau director, Mr. Mark Berger. He came in with a lot of experience from the investigation side, and he moved over to bus safety. So currently that's our main office program set up. Again, it's the three, Jim, Chad, and myself, Steve Farina, and then Mark Berger is our director. So Dan did send me some questions over. I'm going to try to answer them the best of my knowledge, and I'll take any questions at the end if they pertain to DOT. We cannot answer any other questions for any other agency. State Ed, DMV, we do not have those answers. Are there any questions from you, Dan, where we started, or should we just get into the questions?
Yeah, we'll get started here. I'll ask you the first question. I had somebody ask, if a bus needs a control module, and due to the supply chain these days where parts are hard to get, sometimes they can't even give us an ETA on when the part's going to arrive. If a part's on back order, what do we do with the bus for the inspection?
Okay, that really could be a 3 or 4 part question. The biggest thing is depend on what part it is. If there's a check engine light that is illuminated on the dashboard, or if there's operational issues, either running conditions or transmission shifting, anything of that sort, the vehicle would fail inspection if it's presented that way. I will put into, just for comments, we have a exhaust sensor issue right now with the DEF tanks. So really not exhaust, but the DEF tank sensor are on back order. IC has actually come up and presented paperwork to us that they have a software update and it's approved by the EPA that it still maintains emissions. So we have accepted on the IC vehicles that the software update can be completed, and there are stipulations posted by IC. After the parts are available, they'll be installed and the software updated to the original setting. I know there's been talk with Bluebird and Thomas on the same issue with the check engine lights. Thomas is working on information right now. I spoke to Ricky Stanley last night. He didn't provide all of the information back to me this morning, so that's still in the works. Bluebird buses, for the check engine light for the sensor, has no software update. They do not allow any changes to the settings. So if you have a Bluebird currently or a Thomas currently and it has a check engine light for the sensor and you cannot clear the code, the bus will not pass inspection. So, and just as a reminder, just like an ABS light, we do allow the check engine light to be cleared one time, clear the codes out as long as it does not reset during the inspection, and that includes a road test. We will put a certificate on the vehicle. But if the light comes back on, that is a failure.
Okay. Question number 2. Could you please explain the 2 out of service stickers.
Okay, this part I'm going to let Chad Smith take over. He's going to share his screen and he'll go into the details on the out of service stickers and also the updated wording on the MC300.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day. It looks like it's a fairly good good weather day out. Hopefully everybody's enjoying it. All of you should be familiar with our new MC300 that came along with our new busnet system that we pushed out. And these are sent electronically to operators. We have a sample form here. It's basically just a mock-up of what you would typically see on an MC300. And obviously, you don't want the red failure, but should you have a red failure, it's going to be due to either a defect or a newly established A-HP defect. So, as an example here, I've listed, we've got a vehicle inspection that occurred here. There's 2 defects. There's a 2500 1A, an exit entrance door does not operate freely or completely. And you can see here under type, it is clearly an A. Under the next one, we have a 3700 2A-HP. It clearly shows that this is an A-HP defect. In addition, all of these defects have a indication on here at the beginning of the narrative that will always say highway operation prohibited. So we'll go into specifically what that means here in just a moment. So we do, hopefully this is not your vehicle, but should it be your vehicle, you want to know what to do with it. Basically, the next portion of the MC300 basically tells you what you can and cannot do with that vehicle. So, any vehicle with a defect rating of an A-HP, highway use prohibited, shall be placed out of service, and that vehicle may not be used until the defect has been repaired, corrected, and the vehicle has been re-inspected by a New York State DOT inspector. So this vehicle is not eligible to be used on the roadways of New York until it actually gets re-inspected. Any vehicle with a defect rating of A shall be placed out of service, and that vehicle may not be used to carry passengers until the defect has been repaired or corrected and the vehicle has been re-inspected by a New York State DOT inspector. So there is a slight difference in wording there. What the A defect allows for is if you only have an A defect that's found through the inspection, your vehicle will be allowed to be used on the roadways in a limited capacity in order for maintenance and in order to correct those issues. But it is not lawful to be used in order to transport passengers at any time. In addition, if you have Bs, it tells you what the Bs are required for and the Cs are required for. What they mean as well. So basically, I've got a couple of examples here. If you have a regular A defect, you get our typical out of service decal. This is an 8.5 by 11 sticker that goes on the windshield showing that the vehicle is in fact out of service for transportation of passengers. You will also see here the wording that goes on the back of it, which would be facing towards the driver. And this would be only if there was an A defect encountered through the inspection. The highway prohibited decal has a lot of red to it. Hopefully that causes people to take a moment and understand what this means. Highway operation prohibited. This vehicle has been placed out of service and cannot be operated on the roadways until properly repaired. So this is what the front of the sticker looks like. And this is what the rear of that particular sticker looks like. So continuing on with that discussion, there are situations you could have an A defect where you would only have an A out of service sticker on it. You could have just an A-HP defect where you would have the highway prohibited defect, or you could have a combination of both should your inspection result in failure for both of an A and a highway prohibited A defect. So if you get a vehicle that has both an A defect and an A highway prohibited defect, what will happen is that if the reinspection shows that the A highway prohibited defect was corrected, that particular sticker will be scraped off and will allow for the use of the vehicle to be used for maintenance correction. Hopefully that kind of shows you a little bit about what's going on with the new stickers, and what the determinations are, how they'll be reflected on the MC300 and what they look like. Hopefully no one ever has to see any of these, but we know we all, it's impossible to avoid them entirely. So any questions on this?
One comment that I do want to follow up on, could you bring up the MC300 again,
Absolutely.
please? So on the MC300, it has wording that if the decals have been removed, or if the vehicle is driven with a AHP decal on it, you could be subject to a notice of violation where you would appear in front of our judge, and there could be civil penalties up to a $10,000 fine for removing the decals and driving the vehicle on a highway with the highway prohibited decal. So, and we make it very clear on the MC300 that's you cannot remove the decals and drive it on the highway, or even drive it down the highway with the decals on the vehicle. So we have been following up. I hate to say, but we have issued notices of violations out, and they have appeared and they have settled with the court. So just to pass that on as more information. Is there any questions from the audience on any of that on the highway prohibited or the A out of service decal? Okay.
All right. If nobody has any questions on that answer, what about the one before, the control module, the back order of parts? That was the first question. Does anybody have any questions on that to go along with ordering parts and what to do with the bus? Okay. Number 3. What are your thoughts on removing the hand sanitizers from the buses? I know when we first put them in, it was a kind of a deal to get them put in. Now that they're in and COVID is still there, but is there any talk about removing those?
At this time, because, and you hit it right on the head there, as long as COVID is out there in the public, which we don't know for how much longer, we have no intention of removing the hand sanitizer. This is a unwritten policy that was made between state ed and DOT to allow the hand sanitizer. And as of today, the virus is still out there. We have no intention of having it removed.
Okay. Hey, does anybody have anything else to add to that question? All right, moving forward. Has there been any talk of inspecting buses once a year instead of twice a year?
Actually, in our regulations, which are very hard to change, but in our regulations, it does show biannual inspections. So without a change of the regulation, we cannot go to a yearly inspection. So with the current regulations, it will stay at twice a year.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to add to that one? All right. And this one's got a few parts to it. If there are LEDs out in the right brake light, does it have to be replaced just because it's got a few LEDs out?
Yes, and it does have several parts to this, but in 2004, 2005 time period, we put out a written policy for DOT that any LED in any light, if it has one LED out, is a 15-day defect for replacement. Those lights will actually be written under 9902, which is a non-defect, with the comment that the operator has 15 days to replace the light, and it will describe which light has the LED out. If you remember, for the ones that's been around prior to that policy in place, any LED was out of service. So we met the industry halfway. We spoke to the manufacturers, and the best thing that we could come up with, which is still current, is the light is serviceable as long as it has some LEDs, but if there's any LED out, it must be replaced within 15 days.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything to add to that? All right, so we do have to replace the light. Now, when you say it's a 15 days, that's considered a note, right?
Yes, we decided not to put a C defect on it, which is the 15 days is equivalent to a C defect. So we just put it as a note, as a reference that you have 15 days to replace it.
Okay. This same question was, if we do replace the light, which we determine we do have to replace the light, does it have to match the left one exactly? And what they're talking about is not putting an incandescent light on there, but an LED light to an LED light. So you got one on the left, one on the right. Patterns are different.
No, you do not have to match them. But I will say, just from our side, probably once, I would say once every other month, we do get a call from a concerned parent. They're behind buses at schools and the lights don't match, and we have to explain why they don't match. But there is no regulation that they have to match. You know, you replace it with an LED, different pattern, you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, because this person was explaining that maybe they don't make the light anymore, or maybe it's changed, you know?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, yeah, because the next question, I sort of asked that one already, was do we have to replace both the lights? And
Right.
we determined that we can just replace the one light.
That is correct.
Does anybody have anything to add to that? Anything about the lights? You see, I thought when this first started, the incandescent light was an A failure. And when we went to the LED lights, you could have a couple of those out. And that was one of the benefits of going to the LED system.
Well, what we found, and this was some of the research that was done back when we put the policy in place. And again, when they first came out, if there was any portion of the light out, it was a failure. We reached out to the manufacturers and we asked how many LEDs lights could be out, but still meet federal standards as far as brightness. No one could come back to us with any test to show how many lights had to operate to meet the federal standards of being a serviceable light. So that's why we drew a line in the sand and just said, if there's any portion out, it has to be replaced within 15 days.
Okay. I have a question here about if the gross vehicle weight rating of a diesel bus, and they're just throwing numbers out, but let's say it's 29,000 pounds, and the bus is being converted to electric, because that's companies that are out there now are converting buses, at a great savings versus purchasing a new bus. But the conversion is going to add weight because of the batteries and the motors, etc. Will the bus pass a DOT inspection, and will the converted bus need to be re-registered? And about the weight, say it went over the weight, but because it was a conversion, that was their question. Is that okay to do that?
It is not. We have several conversations with I'm aware of two companies that are currently doing retrofits for electric motors, and the vehicle cannot come in overweight because the companies that's doing the retrofits are not a final manufacturer. So we have to go by the final manufactured weight, and the axle weights, they cannot be exceeded. So they need to find a way to build the bus that comes in under gross weight. And I did speak to, which I'll get into with the next question, but we had the opportunity Monday to view a electric bus, and really the weight difference between a diesel powered bus and the electric bus, they're almost comparable weight, because you're actually losing the diesel engine, the fuel tanks, the transmission, and then adding back the weight of the electric motor plus the batteries. And they explained that it was slightly higher weight than the diesel bus, or, the diesel engine. So we all know currently the buses being built are pretty much well under the gross weight. So I personally, at this point, I don't see them coming in overweight, on the gross weight. And time will tell. We're all in this. It's a new item for everyone. We did just put one in for Logan Bus in the lower part of the state, and that was a retrofit, and it was well below gross weight. And again, we use the final manufactured gross weight and axle weights. They cannot be exceeded.
Okay. Does anybody have any more questions related to that? Okay. Can you explain a DOT inspection on an electric bus?
Well, I started to get into that. We do not have all of the procedures put down because, again, this is new to us as well it is for the distributors and for the operators receiving them. Currently, we've had two opportunities to inspect an electric vehicle. One was on Monday. We actually had a great experience with Matthews Bus, looking at one of the new electric vehicles. We did a complete walk-around inspection, including the air drain. And really the procedures that we currently have for any bus is basically going to stay the same. There will be variations on the brake drain due to being an electric air compressor. The key may have to be in the off position because, as you know, when we drain the air, we want to go all the way down to zero. And then do the check valve procedures. If you leave the key in the on position, the electric compressor kicks in and starts building air up. So the one thing that we found, you just leave the key to the off position, pump down the brakes, and you do a regular brake procedure. Now, I will speak very briefly on the Thomas bus. All of their electric vehicles will be manufactured with the IntelliPark, which is really a electric It's a air controlled with an electric button on it. So the operation for that system is a little bit different. So we went through that procedure. We found a way to work through it, and it was no issue. So really, the procedures for the electric vehicle currently are going to stay the same. You know, there will be a little tweak here and there to make up the difference of the components. But we don't see any great change of the inspection procedure. And just as Thomas noted on Monday, really the chassis and the body are really the same thing, except how it's powered. So right now we're still in the learning stages, just as everyone is. But we did view the Thomas and the Bluebird Vision electric vehicles and found no huge issues with the inspections.
Okay, so if say there's a charge, say you have a low charge and it's causing an issue with an electric bus, maybe it's causing that little turtle light or something to come on that I hear up. Is that a failure, or would you have to, find a way to quickly charge the bus back up to get it through the inspection?
Yes, one of the things that Tom, and I know Sean is on the line also, they did suggest during our inspections that they should be adequately charged for our inspection. You know, you're going to be using it for 1 hour. It should be adequately charged for that inspection. So, you should not have it down to the low voltage and the turtle comes on, because that's where the engines are going to start derating possibly. So they should be charged just like you would right now with the diesel engines, or any internal combustion engine must be up to operating temperature. You should do the same thing with the electric bus. You should have it ready to go for that inspection.
Okay, I think what they were getting at also is if they had to run that bus for a run in the morning and then pull it in after the run for the inspection, and of course it was a little low on a charge, I think that's what they were concerned about. If they didn't have a spare bus, they ran the bus in the morning, the charge was 75% depleted, and they were going to charge it back up, but it still needed the DOT inspection. In that case, would that be a failure, or is that something that we're still looking into?
That's something that we would have to look into. There's ways to work around that. Even when the inspector's doing paperwork, it could be on a charger for that short period and bring it up enough so you don't have a low voltage indication. So it's something that we will have to consider as we move forward. But that's a very good point.
Yeah, I just got a message that's a concern with the hills and stuff in certain areas. So bus goes out, and I know you just said that we're working through this, but they're saying that there are hills and it could definitely deplete a charge in a run, especially in a smaller district or a district that didn't have extra buses to if they had to run a bus in the morning before the inspection, the run could deplete that battery enough where.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's something that would have to take case by case, because right now, and I'll speak for DOT side, we don't know all of these ins and outs that are going to kick up as we move forward. And even speaking to the distributors, with the mileage range that's in the buses, just like they're saying, the terrain, if you're running heaters, if you're running air conditioner, that's all going to change that range. So I guess at this point, I do not have a good, solid answer due to we really don't have that information. And to my knowledge, no operator has the buses currently to even experience what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions in regards to the batteries or the electric bus DOT inspections? like you said, I think we got to give it a little bit of time and see how it's going to play out. All right, I have a question. I know we spoke about this briefly just before the meeting. I'm hearing that the wigwags are no longer going to be required. Could you elaborate on that, Jeff?
Yes. As we spoke a little bit prior, STEMCO approached us. It was late spring timeframe, and they had a very well-deserved concern. New York State is the only state that uses wigwags, and they're mandatory on school buses. And it's a very low selling item for STEMCO to make, and it's very labor intensive. To get into some of the details, all of the wigwags are actually handmade. They're not really machine produced, like mass produced. They actually put people into a clean room and assemble the pieces by hand. So very labor intensive, and STEMCO is at the point that the sales are so low on a wigwag that they can no longer produce them, or if they continue to produce them, their prices will raise so high that it's really going to make the market, it's going to be overpriced for what the item is. So we did bring it back to our legal team, our director, and we did post on May 5th. We put into the New York State Registry to have the wigwag regulation repealed. Right now it's in a 60-day comment period, and that comes down on July 4th. So we're anticipating the end of July into August, there will be information put out to the industry on that repeal. And I will caution, if they're installed on the vehicle, they must operate as intended, even after the section is repealed. Because it's just like any option. If the option's on a vehicle, it must operate as designed. So it's a two-headed sword there, that they will be repealed, but if they're on the buses, they must continue to operate as designed. Dan, I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, along with that, what about the school bus signs? A while ago, I know there was talk about New York State maybe not having to have them a backlit sign. Is that anything that's had any progress made on?
No, the school bus signs will remain in the regulations as being backlit.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to add to either one of those? All right. Will the brake portion, the brake check on an electric vehicle be different than a combustion, an internal combustion engine vehicle? And are there different standards for the braking distances and stuff? If so, what should we be looking for to meet those standards?
Yeah, the standards will remain the same. We're still using the Vericon meter to check the brake efficiency. Those numbers will remain the same. Like I explained prior, during the brake drain itself, there is a little bit different procedure on how the compressor operates, because we have to remember this is an electric compressor, and if the key is on the on position, the air is low, it'll try to build the air back up. So like I said, with the Bluebird and the Thomas, we had a very minor workaround, and the brake check, the brake drain remains the same.
Okay. If a control switch for a mirror doesn't work, but the mirror can still be manually adjusted, So the driver could still adjust the mirror. He just has to do it the way that some buses already are. Is that a failure?
It's would not be a failure, but we have to go back to the electric mirrors are an option, installed option. And our policy with any option, the option must operate as designed. So in this case, again, it won't be a failure because the mirror, as long as the mirror maintains the adjustment, it would not be a failure. The MVI should be putting a note on the MC300 stating that the electric mirror does not operate and it must be repaired. So again, if any option is installed, they must operate as designed. You could remove that option. You could remove the switch and cap off the wiring so it doesn't have any power to it. So there is a workaround on the installed option, but it must be removed so the driver doesn't rely on that switch attending to work. And that goes again for any option.
Okay, and I'm going to assume that a piece of tape over that switch is not sufficient to
No,
get it DOT, right? It's got to
no,
be
the switch must be removed.
okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions for DOT? Any questions at all? All right, well, those were the questions that we had for this presentation. I would like to thank you, Jeff and Chad, for your putting this together, the information that you provide for us. Now, if you guys think of any other questions, please let me know, or you could just let DOT know, Jeff, Corey. But it would be good if we all knew, because we'll all think of more questions, I'm sure. And that way we can all benefit from the answers that we get from DOT. So it's not over with. Still send me questions, send Jeff questions, and we'll all work together on this. Our next meeting will be in September. Now, the steering committee and myself have been working on the training schedule for the upcoming school year. We're going to put it on the Sway page that I designed, and it's going to have the dues for this coming up year and the training schedule. This year was a good year. We had 10 steady months of the training. We had coolants in September, fuel treatments in October, disc brakes in November. That was Cody Shamrock. We had high voltage working with the electric buses. That was in December. We had January was after treatments and the DPF system. In February, we had Chad White inspected on presented on tires. March was air conditioning. April was wheelchair lifts. That was with Kevin Rockland and Don Brown bus sales. May was multiplexing, and our June meeting we're having right now, and that was the DOT roundtable. And all of these meetings are on our YouTube channel. So you can always go back and review these. And that's one of the things that's nice about the way we're doing this is when you need any information, you can always go back. I know that just this year, we have gone back here at Shenandoah to the wheelchair lift adjustment, just because it's a quick reference. We went right to the part and adjusted the wheelchair lift properly, and it was good to go. And on that same presentation, that was Don Brown bus sales. They have all of the procedures and schematics for the different wheelchair lifts right on their site. So the way that we're doing this last year, and maybe this year coming up, we'll probably do the same thing. But it's creating a reference that we can all benefit from all these different companies. So please respond to the surveys that I send out, because that's how really I know, and the steering committee knows what you guys are looking for. So if you have something that just pops in your head that you want to see training on, either send me an email or respond to one of the surveys that I send out, and just stay in contact. Stay in contact with me so we can give you guys what you guys are looking for. The other thing we want to know is if people like the virtual or the in-person meetings. I know especially this year has been crazy with everybody driving. Well, first it was COVID, now everybody's driving. And so it's hard for everybody to leave this shop. We currently have 15 cameras on right now. And some of the cameras have 5 or 6 people at the cameras. So, this is working, but maybe you guys would like to mix it up a little bit. If we can, we'll see how next year goes with the driver shortage. But keep me in the loop. Let me know how everybody wants to proceed. We are still looking for a treasurer, so we still need some help here. And if you guys know of anybody, please send them my way. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but we need to fill this seat. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting if nobody has anything to add. Does anybody have anything to add to today's meeting? I know I did see some of the questions come up, and I will contact you on those. But as of right now, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you, Jeff and Chad, and we will see everyone in September. Look for the Sway page. I'll be emailing it to everyone, and that's going to have the new schedule on it. But that'll pick up in September.
Okay, thanks for everybody's time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see everybody later.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dan and Jeff.